have a couple of questions. Just to comment on that, I've noticed a lot of times you get caught in inconsistencies because somebody elaborates further down the road, and then the question is, well, why did you say it in the first place? Which is really just it's a timing thing, right? So I have three very brief questions. The first two for Sean. I wonder if you think that the fact that there's no time in which you have to make a claim, but that the short 8 days might make people arrive in the country and not make a claim for much longer periods of time, in which they can technically then remain undocumented or illegal within Canada. And then the other part is that if the safe source country, in the international definition, it says people who are also unwilling to avail themselves of the protection of their country. And if that this policy conflicts with that. And then for going further, sorry, the other one is kind of touching on the issue of how the out-of-country determination process relies on the UNHCR determination and what say the sponsors have in that process, and with respect to respecting the idea that it should be those most in need and not the ones. There shouldn't be any other criteria that influence that decision making.
So with respect to the issue about unwilling to avail yourself of protection in your home country, it's still an objective test. So you have to show that it's objectively reasonable for you to be unwilling. The response will be twofold. One, the conditions in the country are what makes your unwillingness reasonable or unreasonable. And so if the country is safe, then it would be unreasonable for you to be unwilling to approach the country for protection. The second thing the government, I think, would say is that you still have the opportunity to show that you meet the refugee definition. You just have that opportunity before the RPD instead of the Refugee Appeal Division. And I'm sorry, I lost the first.
Just will the 8 date, will the shortened period for making that claim push people to make it much later and remain in the country?
I think people who are advised, although it's problematic to advise people to come to the country to make refugee claims, but people who are well informed about the process are more likely to either get counsel to prepare for that interview prior to coming to the country, or to try to make inland claims in order to get around that. The reality is that many people come to the country without full knowledge of the process. So one thing that you might see is that people who make claims inland end up being more successful than people who make claims at ports of entry. That would be one way of testing whether or not, in fact, being prepared for this interview actually makes a difference in your success rate.
And very briefly, so two more questions are here in a second. You talk about most in need. I think privately sponsored refugees are rarely chosen on the basis of some abstract notion of need. I think it has to do with ability to support not only financially, but also, for example, if it's a small rural BC community, who's already there, who might join another family where family members, some are there. So I think that if anything, more discretion will be brought in with more, 2,000 new spaces. So we're not looking at really advancing a protection mandate, just making more spaces. But again, I would welcome any increase in those numbers. So, two questions.
Okay, a couple of questions. One, it's hard to argue against the principles of fast and fair that Peter Schauler